And there we go. I believe we are live. How is everybody doing here? Welcome to the Education Fix. Really excited to. Hi, Rich. How are you?
Pleasure to see you all again and to meet a new friend.
Yes, the beauty of LinkedIn, reaching out and talking to people with common interests. We have Doug Thompson here. Doug, how are you?
I am well, thanks, Al. Thanks, Richard. Good to meet you too.
Thank you.
And Doug, you have your own podcast that you do pretty regularly, right?
Yeah, Tech Story podcast. I do that once every week. Sometimes interviews, sometimes it's me just ranting about technology. I get good storytellers. It's all about telling that technical story, which obviously you gentlemen are quite adept at.
We're lucky enough to have Doug, who is at, I'll let you explain your background,
Sure.
where you're from, what you do. But the topic for today is going to be about digital transformation. And it's a pretty robust term as far as the interpretation goes, as far as how much depth you can get into that topic. We could probably spend five podcasts on that easily and not even get down to it. But especially post COVID or in COVID now, it makes a big difference, and it's a much more looked at topic or focused on topic than ever before. Uh, so, Doug, you want to just quickly talk about your background, then we'll get into the conversation about the digital transformation. And Rich, I'm sure will add about culture and that shift that needs to happen, among other things, with digital transformation. But real quick, your background, Doug.
Sure. I'm currently a technology strategist at Microsoft on the education team, and technology strategist is a fancy term for sales nerd. So I'm the technical half of the account team brain. I need to know how all of our product suite here at Microsoft works, sort of end to end, how they fit together. But more importantly, how they solve educational problems, how they solve business problems, and sort of marry those two discussions. That's the storytelling. Because if I'm talking to a curriculum director, it's going to be a different dialogue than if I'm talking to an IT director. So it's how do I use that language? How do I tell that story and do something where they can understand that?
And it's a critical piece. We spoke offline, and I've worked pretty extensively with Microsoft Education. But a lot of these larger outfits, the Microsoft, the Google, the bigger names that really work with education and provide technology and tech solutions for education, it's a huge piece of it. The role that you play is a big piece of it, to bridge that gap between what they're creating and what is actually useful in the classroom, right, Doug? And that's I'm sure something you have to deal with probably everything you do, right?
Yeah, it does, and I've got a broad team. So I got part of my virtual team members they're like classroom specialists, so they really understand the vernacular of the curriculum in the classroom and the dynamics. So sometimes I herd cats. Sometimes I get them to go in and sort of have these other conversations. Other times when I'm talking a little bit higher level strategy, I'm here sort of connect the dots and then pull the right people in to complete the picture for me.
Excellent, excellent. Rich, just did give you a chance to chime in there. You want to start us off on this conversation or continue this conversation?
Yeah, well, I was thinking, it's funny. I was writing this morning for some things I'm developing, and something just popped into my head, and I said, well, a saying that Al and I have often, Doug, is that energy follows direction. And that sounds pretty cute. But then I said to myself, that's not enough. I said to myself, well, energy follows direction, but more nearly energy, insofar as transformation, to go back to that word you used, is about changing, coming up with a new way to realize. So what you're doing is enabling your clients to find new ways to realize how they can transform. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And a lot of time, where I see some people get challenged is they start with the technology. I want to do X, Y, I want this technology without sort of a reason of, okay, why? Right. And starting, as we look at personal development, you always, Simon Sinek, what's your why? So what's the end game here? So I like to flip that on its head. And when we're talking, we have these envisioning sessions, and it's like, okay, in a perfect world, okay, there are no boundaries, there's no regulations, there's no rules, there's no anything, no budget. What would that look like? Right? What does that look like? What does that enable you to do? And I think that gives you that guidance. Here's, like you were talking about, here's where we want to go. Here's what we want to do. Then as we sort of roll back. It is a real world. There are federal regulations, state regulations. There are some other things on there. We sort of add those back a layer at a time, but I make them justify why are we doing this? Because it's about shifting organizational mindset too. Because we're humans, we like to be comfortable, and we've always done it that way. Seems to be a comfortable excuse. That's what we do. The people that put that in place are long since gone. Nobody knows what it is. And so we have to do that, and then we sort of layer it on, go all the way through. And budget is the last thing that we do. And the reason I have budget last is transformation is not instantaneous. It's going to take months, if not years, to get where you want to get to that nirvana that you thought about. And when we put budget in, we say, okay, what is the one step with the budget that we have that can put us on that path to where we want to go? So we're starting right. So that way enables you to sort of, okay, here's the budget for this next year. We got budget and we know what step 2 is. And the beautiful thing about that, with the speed of the technology advancements, things that are coming on, is that nirvana can change a little bit and shift a little bit, but that gives us the flexibility to go and sort of make those course corrections to still head towards where we want to go.
So Doug, first I have to comment, you're using your hands a lot. You have to have some Italian in there somewhere.
I don't know. I've got a bunch. I'm sort of a mutt from that, but I lived in Louisiana for a long time with the Cajuns, and if you tied my hands, I wouldn't be able to talk.
Well, we're the same way, so you're good with us. So I want to press you a little bit on one of those statements that you made, or probe a little bit, because I've always, and I think Rich, we've said this too, education, changing education is, I had an old teacher that used to use the term, you're slower than molasses going up a hill in February. Right?
With a headwind.
And a lot of times education and transforming and digital transformation seems to follow the same path, but maybe a little bit more exponentially it happens. Quicker it happens, but for the most part, it's slow. Now, here we have this mindset, we have this thought process that it's going to take years and years and years. Then COVID hits, right? And digital transformation seems to happen overnight with some, right? And within a couple of weeks for others. So what are your thoughts on that aspect of it? And Rich, I see you want to add something too, but it really intrigues me, that piece of the digital transformation, because it seems like in everybody's mind, it should take a long time, but then something like this hits, this sort of outlier factor, major outlier, and boom, we're all using Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Meet, whatever it is. And we're all using the equivalent of Google Classroom, or I think it's Microsoft
Teams.
Yes, same. So I mean, it's something that happened pretty quickly. What are your thoughts on that?
So I'm glad you asked that, because for me, that goes to prove that a lot of the molasses effect, if you will, we'll just go back, was just simply human nature not wanting to change. When we were forced to change, I watched these people that were in technology, and I'll jump through so many hoops to get stuff done. I mean, it was just awesome to watch that happen, because they had to. There was no comfort level of, oh, we'll get to this, we're going to move at this pace. That's a comfort level. Humans hate change. I mean, it's a natural thing for us. We like that nice warm feeling of the warm bed, things that we know. But when they were forced to, it does it. So now what I use that as, when we go back, well, it's going to take us, really think back just 3 months ago. You said that was 4 years. We did it in a period of a month.
Exactly.
Right. So now there is sort of a downside to that. There's some unintended consequences of now which we have to work back, both from us as a product perspective, from security and features and stuff on that, but also in the classroom, how do you do things and all that. So there is some, it's like you jump, I'm a Harry Potter fan, so you've apparated to this one place and realize, okay, I need to back up a little bit, because now there's some challenges I need to sort of work through before I take that next step.
Right. Excellent. And I love, you can't say you can't anymore, because you did it. Your capacity for change is there. And it was more the willingness, like you said, that warm blanket they want on them, but you have to whip it off and, step on the cold floor for change. Rich?
Tortured metaphor. One of my tortured metaphors, a grain of sand in an oyster shell. forms an ulcer. And then later on, it turns into a pearl. And so a lot of grains of sand got blown into lots of oyster shells with this crisis that we're in. And folks, we're either going to change or not to survive in a metaphorical way, to go with that. So, I mean, there's not too many good things you can say about what we're doing right now, but that's probably a good example of how change does come about when places, like you said, are resisting. Because when the system when someone tries to change a system of any kind, it's going to fight back because of the cultural beliefs and whatnot. So when you go into a district or somewhat to clients, tell me about the clients who are more amenable to what you're trying to have them consider. What is it about them as compared to the folks who resist?
Well, I think a lot of it starts at the top. I mean, there's no hard and fast answer for that, unfortunately, because they're all unique, and everybody's a unicorn with this, because they have their own pressures and stuff. But if you have a superintendent that's got a really visionary with where they want to go and do things, that helps. But he's got to fight. Usually, he or she has a challenge with the school board to go do. So that helps create some pull through. I find that if you create the pull through, it's a lot easier than trying to push things through, like from the IT. Or typically, a lot of decisions were made from the IT perspective, because that's back in the day when you had the castle, that's where technology was. You controlled it. You had sort of the four walls. You had more users than you did devices, and you could sort of manage it that way. And so there was depending on the infrastructure and the organization is put in place at that time, that sometimes can be a sticking point. So trying to find advocates that want to create that demand this is like marketing. So create that demand generation for change. And then my job is to help from the technical standpoint, help them show how that's possible. How can we enable that? What's the easier way to get that stuff done?
In order to create the critical mass.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier to pull a string than it is to push it.
I was just going to say, Doug, I love the.
I'm stealing that one.
I wrote it down too, Rich. Yeah. And it's the truth. Like with any initiative in education, if it's not supported from the top and high levels and not empowered, right? You need to empower change. If it's not empowered at that very top level, sometimes the grassroots will get it to that top level, but it's tough to do without that piece. Rich.
And I've seen the grassroots people hesitant because they didn't feel like they had the support to do that, and that's one of those career limiting moves that nobody really wants to make.
Yeah, Rich.
Yeah, but to pull that critical mass together requires not only an inspirational leader, but the folks who pull the string with the superintendent, whomever, need to have the capacity to do that in the first place. That was a word you used before, Al. And so it's one thing to have, the charismatic leader say, follow me, I'll divide the Red Sea with you. But at the other side of the coin, they need people who know how to work with that person to be able to jump into that stream with them. Wow, I'm really mixing the metaphors like crazy this morning.
We got molasses, we got string, push, pull, we got everything here, right?
It's very much a team effort, though. You're correctly, because you could have the best quarterback on the planet, but if you don't have a line to support him and stuff on that, we have examples of that every week in the NFL.
So, like when you put together, and I'm not familiar with Team, Microsoft Team. I think I use it once.
I can change that. Let's talk afterwards. I'll fix that for you.
I'd love to see it. If we can think about what went into the thinking to create Team from your folks at Microsoft, they had to consider lots of thematic and theoretical points of view to make it successful.
Well, to add a layer to the challenge of that, so Teams is what we use actually in enterprise as well. So that would be an enterprise application, and then we layered some education-specific things on top of it, from the collaboration perspective, from the ability to do assignments, from the ability to put a little bit more restrictions and stuff on it. We actually have a team in the developer. We have a whole organization with education focus in mind. We put when Satya Nadella said education is a big focus of ours. So we're putting some really great team members and making that investment to make this, again, taking feedback from the classroom, from the customer, and here's the things that we need, and then we can incorporate that into the product. So it's been a great experience, and getting that direct feedback, working very closely with the customers. Because if you give the customers what they want, there's a lot of love and stuff that goes along with that. So that's really what it's again, creating demand. In this case, the demand generation is coming from the schools. Hey, we need these features, and then we're fulfilling those the best we can.
And it's been interesting, Doug, because I was on that path of working really closely with both Microsoft and Google for a long time. And, Google became the king, and Microsoft was like, wait, what's going on here? We were the king. But you've seen that feedback loop really take hold, because in the past few years, Microsoft, and I think it's a lot with Satya too, where they're listening and improving. And that's a huge piece of this digital transformation for big corporations to stay in the mix. That feedback loop is really, really key. I have a question. We've had this digital transformation happen really quickly. And we've talked about this, Rich, in the past, where sometimes we have just traditional teaching in a digital space, right? Sometimes it's really, truly innovative stuff that's going on. But my question for you, as we sort of wrap this up today, and Doug, we'd love to have you on again too.
Sure.
Really great
Love to be
conversation. Is how do we make sure that this digital transformation that has happened because of COVID sticks, and they don't revert back to under the warm blanket or that cozy feeling that you're talking about? Like, how do we? And by the way, we got a sports analogy in there too. That was very smooth, Doug. Before you got that, so
I pull them from all sectors.
So how do we make it? I heard that football is kind of a thing in Texas too, right?
A little thing, maybe on Friday nights. You may have heard that.
Yeah. So, but how do we make it stick? How do we continue? Because transformation is not. You can think of it as this epiphany and this moment. Hey, I'm there, but it's not. It's this thing that just keeps on happening and happening, right? So how do we make it stick? How do we sustain it?
Yeah, that's always been a fear of mine. How do we revert back to the mean, right? Do we go back to what's comfortable and all that? And as time passes, I think that's less likely, because this is new normal or whatever it is. They're getting comfortable with where they are. They're getting comfortable. Now, will they make that seismic shift in the future? Unless we have something else, which I can't imagine. Be careful what you wish for, but I can't imagine something else being more transformational or disruptive than this. I think they will be there. And then the part is to sort of maybe remind them of, what does going back cost to this? What is the cost? What are you going to lose? And now you've created this expectations with the teacher, or somebody that I need to be able to learn from anywhere. I need to be able to learn on any device. I need to be able to do these other things, not just in person. You go back to the old way, that's not easy. You can't do that. And so now you're pulling something away from somebody. You want to really make irritated customers take something away from them. We learned that with the start button, by the way, on Windows 8. So we learned that lesson the hard way.
Some of that's something that the students need this too.
Yeah.
This is not something like the connection. This is the connective tissue to what drives students to technology, right? And if we revert back, that's a loss too.
And I think this gives us it's not an either or, it's an and. So some students, like your son was saying, is thriving in this environment, which I've talked to others that have. And you talk to some others that don't. So maybe we get that mix where this is truly sort of that personalized learning, in that, hey, if you're better in a remote and you can focus and you can do these things, here's how you do that, and then, of course, I think you need to introduce some cultural type thing in person, so we don't lose that humanity piece of that. But you can have the shift where this, he's primarily working remotely, then he goes in, and this other one here, maybe my granddaughter does better with a crowd. It needs that sort of one-on-one, but she can also do things remotely if she needs to. So I think it's the and, as opposed to the either or, is the way that we have to make this stick.
Rich, you had something to say as well?
I would add to the ends and say one of it's not even technological at all, and that is, especially when you get educators in one room. Everyone's got a master's degree plus a master's degree plus, and everyone thinks that they're the guy's expert to everything, when in fact they have to listen to other folks with master's degrees as well. So you get you start choking on the I thinks. I think this, I think that, and no one's listening to each other, and so little gets done in a lot of those in those meetings with or without technology. So I think, and this goes back to some research I've done, and I've worked this through in some of the consults we've been doing. Where folks literally need to know how to learn how to collaborate with each other, and then introduce those same skills, dispositions, as well as skills back into team, for example, or some of these other collaborative things we talk about. Otherwise, you get just overrun with, you've got a penny for every I think that must go around the world in a day. We wouldn't have to be on this podcast right now.
No, and you're exactly right. And if you say, once the students, who should be sort of our customer in this end case, they graduate on to go to the workforce, you got to learn to collaborate. I mean, it's not, it's, that's the way we do things as a team. We have to enable it. And when you get out of the I think, it says, what can we do? It's yes, and what can we do? Because everybody, if you take in more ideas, you come up with a better solution. Thus, we use user voice to add features. That's not some engineer thinking, hey, I like this. This is cool. We need to do this. That's of the past. Hey, there's some customer demand for this. This is pretty cool. What else could we do with this? That's the question. And I think if you get that way, like you said, collaboration and all that, that's how you truly get there.
So well said, Doug. Yeah. And
well
yeah, I think that I was going to mention it as well, Rich. The collaboration, the power of technology is that it can expand collaboration and communication. Yes, we still need the face-to-face. We still need those environments, but you could have face-to-face and you're leveraging Microsoft Teams to connect with a classroom around the world. So there's such value in the power that has. If you look at even something professional with LinkedIn, we would have never gotten connected if we didn't leverage technology to connect. So these are the things that I hope that people don't forget and realize that the digital transformation is a continuum, right? It's really a digital transformation.
There's no goal line.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So Doug, listen, I really appreciate you coming on. We like to keep it short and sweet, so everybody has time to view the episode. But we'd love for you to come back on. Really great conversation.
Okay.
And happy to visit with you if you'd like as well in one of your podcasts and return.
Excellent. That'd be great. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Nice meeting you, Richard. Nice meeting you, Al. Thanks a lot.
Nice to meet you.
Take care.